Joining me all the way from Norway is the man from Cadaver and many other acts. He had contributions to Satyricon, Triptychon, Anders Odden. Did I pronounce that right, Anders?
Yeah, you did right. You did very well. Hello.
Thanks for joining me again. I really appreciate your time. And I met you briefly a few times while I took trips out there to Oslo during Inferno Festival. I believe the first time I was kind of starstruck because it was you and Tom G. Warrior in Nice Blood record store.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that. Was that a couple of years ago?
That was back in 2022. That was my first go around to Scandinavia. Had a
Oh,
nice little trip out there for the first time, and it was just by chance that I walk in. It wasn't too far from closing time, and I think I like if I'd have been maybe 5, 10 minutes later, I would have missed you both. So it was quite the meeting.
yeah. I go there quite a few times, but I can see why you felt lucky.
So Anders, you have a very storied career that goes back to as far as like 1988, 89, if I'm not mistaken, with Cadaver.
It is actually uh 40 years now since I started to play this kind of music actually. It didn't get serious enough for any record deals or stuff like that until 89-ish. So yeah, that's true. I actually was sitting in my studio today going through very old tapes that I have digitalized, and I actually found myself from being 13, must have been like in 85, doing like a small interview with myself in English, strangely enough, saying that I was about to launch the best speed metal band in the world and that we would play black metal and shit. So I was pretty early on. So it's weird to hear yourself bragging about something you haven't done yet, but it's cool.
That's interesting because I remember doing like the same thing as like an 8 year old. I had a little cassette recorder as well, and we're just hit record and like whatever I would spew, like I documented. Like I always wanted to be on in radio or in media some type. So I guess you got to set goals for yourself, right? In any way you can. So, but any
Yeah.
but what I always found fascinating about yourself is that Cadaver has like ever since I've been paying attention for a few like more than just 10 years now is that Cadaver's always kind of rode the rails of both death metal and black metal. And I was just wondering, was it like a conscious effort to just do both, or kind of like a rebellious nod to what was happening in the early 90s?
Well, it goes back to what I was talking about the mid 80s, because in the mid 80s there was no black metal or death metal. Everything was just different bands doing more and more crazy shit and diverse examples. So whatever they were expressing. So I think because I started to listen to this kind of underground music from the very get-go almost, 85, 86. That's pretty early. There was no scene for this type of music established in Norway or anything like that. We just found these more extreme bands more interesting than whatever was the heavy metal at the time. And we kind of found each other as well. I mean, all the people in the early bands found each other. So we had a shared vision of doing something completely different from music that was around us. And I think all these genres that have developed as specific genres didn't appeal to us originally. Sorry, I cut that. The appeal was just to be different and super anti everything. So when it became genres like death metal or black metal as genres, I was already gone through it. I didn't really care for the tags. I was caring for original bands doing original things. So that's my aim now, is to teach young people how to get the fuck out of that genre barriers, because the whole reason why we chose to do this was to not have the genre burden. It was to basically say fuck off to everybody and do our own thing for ourselves, because there was no commercial direction it could possibly take, and that was the main attraction, was that it was totally different and outside everything established for music business purposes. So when everybody's now talking about this as being like a part of the music business, I'm also always like, well, maybe you shouldn't think about it as the important factor of anything, because the only thing that mattered to us was that any band forming should not copy what everybody else was doing. It was trying to find your own way. So having a guitar and a drum kit and bass and synthesizers or whatever it took to make it weird and strange was our aim. And I think it's a good point in time now to focus kind of back to the roots more for everybody, because of the downfall of the whole business side of the music. I mean, it's music without the business, which is the key here. And I think everybody is complaining about this being a hard burden to do, and they're not making enough money, don't understand the core values, which is to be totally outside the establishment. And if you choose to be a total outsider, there's rarely a economic upside to that. That's not why you do it. You do it to basically dig inside yourself to find some sort of core that you want to express in music. And if that's not enough for you, you may be looking at the wrong direction for your expressions. It's very hard for me to see all these bands bragging about how many people like them and stuff. When we did this, if people liked it, that was normal. We would change the music. It wasn't allowed for normies to like it. So that has a very deep meaning to me. And I think going forward right now is probably easier for people like me than a lot of younger people thinking this way, instead of thinking that you have to have thousands of likes and stuff. But that was always something we hated. you know
Yeah,
if,
yeah.
if all these original guys knew that you would claim fame to be like, I'm a black metal band, I have like 100,000 spins on fucking Spotify or something, I'd be like, why do you care about this? Fuck it.
Yeah.
That's not who we are. We are opposed to all that shit. That's why we're doing it. And I think because the downfall of the music business, is easier to see who's really into it for the sake of the fucking music than trying to become popular or something. Because if you want to do that, do anything but music, but especially not this kind of music.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. It's kind of the same way why I started this podcast. I didn't start a podcast for getting the most views or getting the most likes or the followers or subscribers, any of that shit. I got into this and wanted to document and archive people that were into extreme metal music, namely black metal and death metal, because that's what I grew up on. That's what I'm really passionate about. And if I'm lucky to get someone that was, like ground zero in Oslo, like such as yourself, whenever like everything started, then I'm all for it. And I'm really thankful that it's happening. And
Yeah.
so given that, and given what you said about today's current involvement with a bunch of young bands and young artists who seemingly are more concerned about who's listening to them, who's paying attention, and who's give them all the accolades that they think they deserve. As an artist, Anders, how do you stay in that original core of of making records and playing your art, like how do you uh keep that fuel of writing dark music?
Well, it is funny to say for me it's very easy to do it. That's first of all. It's not a struggle to do it in itself. It's what is hard is to make something that impresses me, really. You know, I can play just pick up the guitar and do something, and I can immediately identify what I like and don't like, or how I can envision it as a song or something. But now I've been doing this for so long, so it feels like I should more and more try to dig deeper in whatever I'm digging into. It's kind of hard to explain actually how I'm approaching it now because one very important thing that you said is that you do this to document what we all did in I mean, all the older guys used to do, and that's a great thing. And when I'm saying we refuse to be, popular or stuff like that, I mean that in a broader sense. It's basically, if you break it down, it's a lot of people out there in the whole world as such that can relate to what we're doing. It's not that I'm talking about. It's all this um, trying to sound like something you heard to become something. That's to me some educational part you have to go through to find whatever you want to do because when you're a young musician now, there is no things that you can do that hasn't been done somehow. You know, we grew up, for instance, with where the drummers that were faster and faster would be like, "Wow, this guy is really fast." You know, getting faster and faster competition kind of died out in the early 90s, I would say. Even, you can go faster, play more notes, or whatever you want to do, and you don't achieve anything. If you want to achieve something for yourself and for the art, you have to figure out whatever you're doing that comes very natural to you, that you don't struggle with expressing and dig deeper into whatever that is. I think that's the key to find your artistic identity, whatever it is. And if that happened to be this kind of music, go for it. If it happened to be something completely different, just go for it. Don't, whatever you do, don't pretend that you're doing something or try to play for the gallery or some sort,
Yeah.
We had these discussions in bands in the 80s where uh, some of the members were not as motivated. There's always that, most bands are probably one or two really creative people and the others are tagging along. And that's always been like that. But if you have like a pure vision of something you want to achieve that you need other people to do together with you, you just have to figure out who that people is and figure out very soon what their motivation is. If the motivation is to express something artistic and dig deep into that and find whatever sound that makes, that's more than enough, and it should be the goal. If there is, any other motivations would kind of surface kind of early, that people are just doing it for whatever pastime. But right now, actually, I think the people who choose to sit down and play guitar or drums or whatever to learn the craft, to dig into that and not be on their phone all the time in itself is a value, probably, whatever can keep you outside the digital realm and do something for yourself artistically without constantly checking something else in itself would be a good aim for a young person right now. And I see some younger people into it in that way. Sorry. right now that I know in the area, and I'm very impressed that they are able at all to dig deep into something else but instant gratification. Because I think the disease of the current time is attention span, and to even listen to a whole song is hard enough for anyone right now, it seems. So it's we're living in a very bad environment for human beings to focus on anything, which is really strange, you know. It's a brave new world out there.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, everyone is just overstimulated. I mean, you know, like you said, everyone's just paying attention to the screen and whatnot. Whether it's the phone or their laptops. It's everywhere, and it doesn't seem like it's gonna be going away anytime soon. And you had touched on younger bands and how you're impressed. And so my question to that is that do you see that these bands where you're from showing that same rebellious spirit that you grew up with, as far as like playing music to a point where it wasn't for everyone else that's quote normal. Uh, do you see something similar to what you grew up with these younger bands coming out in Norway?
Yeah, there's a couple which I've paid attention to the last year. One is called Svartilågen, which is a black metal band, and the reason why I know about them is that two of the members are sons of an old school friend of mine, and they started to play when they were really early. And bass player songwriter is 12 years old, so that means he's born in 2013 and really hardcore into it. It kind of reminds me the same way I was in 85 somehow, you know, really into this music and learning how to play and write songs and all that stuff. And his brother is, I think, 17 now, or 16, 17, playing the drums. And they just go for it, and they have the right attitude and everything. There's a thrash metal band from Norway as well called oh fuck. Let me just rephrase that. I know their name. Arachna.
Hmm.
Arachna. And they look and sound like German thrash metal bands from 86, 87-ish. Much more skilled technically than they were, you know, at the time. I think the members are 17, 18. And there's another band called Leper Pest, where also the members are like 8, 17, 18-ish. And they all seem to do what I've opened with, finding their own way, their own style. Don't give a fuck about whatever happened, you know, in the past, and figuring out what to do and doing it on their own terms. I'm also very happy that they are playing a lot of more shows than I would, you know, imagine for young bands like that. They manage to play the youth clubs, and they find their stages to play their music. And that's three bands I know right now, which I've seen live and are kind of impressed about. They're all way under 20 years old, you know.
That's
All these people around 30, I don't know about, you know. I mean, I know them, but I think they're kind of frustrated in the other sense. I think they feel old,
hmm
or which we all did when we were 30. I'm 53 soon, so I'm getting younger and younger again. So I don't need to establish any family or, you know. So I feel more like a teenager than the people in their early 30s.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about how uh how you came up as a young one yourself. What was life like as a kid, getting into music, and what initially inspired you to pick up a guitar?
I actually picked up a guitar very early. I think I got my first nylon string acoustic guitar when I was 7 or 8. But at that time, my fingers were not long enough to really hold the, neck properly. But I had the guitar played a little bit, but it was very hard to figure out how to make that sound anything cool when you're so young. Then I started to play the piano for a couple of years until my fingers were long enough so I could get my first electric guitar. And I think I got my electric guitar by the age of 11. So I was very determined to do this. And I got my first Marshall amp uh, and cabinet when I was 13 because that's all I wanted to do. So I was super determined. But the main reason why I had the music as my escape was that when I was 10, my parents moved from like a suburbia kind of environment to a farm.
Hmm.
I was used to, having a lot of kids around where I lived and lots of different things to do. And then when I moved to this farm, there was no, I mean, the village next to the farm is like a mile and a half away. So when you're 10, that's a stretch. I mean, you can bike there and find friends from school and stuff like that, but you're pretty much isolated a lot of the time. And at this time in Norway, Norway was a very different place. We had very limited media, so I was listening to all these local radio stations from Oslo. This place is like it's actually the farm I'm sitting on right now with my studio, but it's like an hour from Oslo. So what turned me really into this extreme stuff was local radio from Oslo. And one night I was listening to the radio, and the whole band of Mayhem was in the studio promoting their first demo, the Pure Fucking Armageddon. So I
Hmm.
was glued to the radio listening to this band from not too far away playing. They played all kinds of music that they had on tapes and vinyl along with their own stuff. They played like Hellhammer, Sodom Creator, all these really early bands, Bathory, I think. And by chance, I figured out who the guitarist was and looked it up in the local phone book and called Euronymous on the phone. I was 13, so for some reason I convinced him to be able to go to see Mayhem rehearse. And because I didn't have that many close by friends at the time, my father was more than willing to drive me to see Mayhem rehearse. He had no clue about this band.
Right.
My father at that time, he was 40. So he was taking me and another kid to the Mayhem rehearsal, and for me to sit in the same room with Mayhem rehearsing and listening to how loud and in extreme they were in without any ear protection just blew me away, literally. I think actually I got my loss of hearing a little bit in this ear from that rehearsal, just sitting next to Euronymous' bass rig. Well, that changed everything for me. I immediately wanted to be exactly like Mayhem. So I just started off there, and here we are now. It's like this is literally 40, uh, 39, 40 years ago.
Hmm.
So it stuck with me from that age to do this kind of music. So it's been a long time now. It feels also like just, if you compress it, it's funny how time changes the perspective when you get older. You suddenly get less and less time left. So you just feel like whatever happened 40 years ago feels as fresh as almost sometimes fresher than anything happening 10 years ago,
Yeah,
like.
and I was able to experience that firsthand with you. I remember going on the actual the black metal tour guide bus that you would do during the
Oh yeah.
Inferno, and I don't know if it was your first time doing the tour back in 2022, 23, maybe. Um,
That was 2008, but
okay.
yeah, I did it again was 2022, I think.
Yeah, and I remember just how close and how, emotional it must have been for you to, to go through, the old neighborhoods where, you were actually hanging out with the guys of Mayhem. And I remember going specifically to whenever you brought the tour to Euronymous' apartment, and how it's just, everyone had this overall sense of just like how real it got.
Mhm.
Because like as an American myself who just grew up listening to the music and just reading everything in papers, I mean, it's one thing to read about it and be on the outside looking in, but whenever you're there with someone like yourself who was like ingrained with the people involved with, like I said, the ground zero of Norwegian black metal, and just being a part of that group for X amount of years, you see how everything is affecting you in a certain way whenever you're telling people, look, this was my friend. He wasn't just a musician. He wasn't just a label figure. This was, a guy that was part of my life. And, it's like, I felt that empathy for you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's important for people to understand that these legends and stuff was never meant to be anything but friends doing stuff, and that's always how things normally go in the world. It's like whenever you have someone that you really knew well when you were super young do something or happen something to that makes them some sort of icon, you never experience that in the same way because it's literally, like you said, it's people I really knew very well and were hanging out with. So for us all, it's super bizarre that this is such legacy in that way because it feels like we need to. Uh, is this this life uh, we all have had in so many different directions, all these different musicians, we all are glued together at the foot because of these events that we all knew super well and we all have a personal tale about. And it's weird like that to feel that it means so much to people outside the people who were actually there and knew the people. It's really, it's a very different approach, I think. It's hard for us to see how this can last and last and last. We nobody thought about it like that at the time, and not even just around that time. It's just like crazy things happening and let's move on and figure out what to do. It was never anyone who thought this would be such a big mythological event at all. It was just shit happening.
Hmm. And I guess whenever you're in the middle of just living your life, back in the early 90s, and getting inspired by the likes of Mayhem, uh, it seems like death and decay and gore was like always at the focal point of Cadaver's music. Um,
Yeah, I'm not totally agreed with that. It's
okay.
actually kind of we had always a different, a little bit different approach to the lyrical side, and I think we used more psychological themes and more, the frailty of the body, and more. We really had inspiration from literature and stuff like that that didn't really maybe didn't come across as that, but there's a Norwegian novelist who the drummer and who also was main singer for a while was very inspired by with the lyrics. So we never really felt that we had this, especially not the American type of gore themes, because we were more. And that goes for most of these Norwegian bands, more into stuff like Monty Python, that kind of humor and extremities. It was more like um when it comes also to the black metal thing, it wasn't being satanic, it was being blasphemous. It's a very different approach. And I think that the whole blasphemous part also coming from the mockery of it all, and with a huge sense of black humor that goes for everything, especially, let's say Dark Throne. They are super into that direction of it, as well as other philosophical things. But the whole scene was full of black humor, which really doesn't really come across very well in the mythology, even because the mythology was is more driven by, yeah, the Count Grishnak side of it.
Right.
And because he was a upper class Bergen type, he was more into Dungeons and Dragons that we all in Oslo area despised. He was into, like the Lord of the Rings, which was more like cringe thing. I think we all felt more like the meaning of life, Life of Brian, that kind of thing, and combined with the mockery. I mean, the whole mockery thing is very important for the philosophical part of the whole thing. So when it's I think, especially as you are an American, in America, religion has a very different role in the society than it has here. We're a very secular country, Norway. The church doesn't mean anything, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm.
All the we actually have evangelists types. We had that in the late 80s, like something that is kind of similar to the uh, I wouldn't say it's similar. It's actually imported from America. Philadelphia, it's called. It's like small churches with this strict Bible interpretations. But in
Yeah.
Norway, that was super minorities. Those people are as small in numbers as Nazis in Norway, or any kind of extreme group. They would be regarded as from society as extremists and weirdos,
Yeah.
and not a part of the political system, not a part of the society or anything, and not a part of TV, not a part of, anything. So whenever we see those people, we were always mocking them, in the streets when we actually had in Norway, Jehovah's Witnesses, and actually American Mormons would come to your door, and then we would. I remember Mannheim, the original Mayhem drummer. He loved it when American Mormons would knock on the door because he would invite them in and discuss with them.
Wow.
Because we totally we despise their attitude towards religion and life and everything, but we want them to understand that we understand what they're saying, and what they believe in is totally bullshit, and it's better to say it to their face than to do that on any other medium. So that part of the whole thing, I think, is totally lost in this story. That's why we're all using the upside down cross, not because we believe in Satan, but because we mock the Christians.
Yeah, and I totally understand that. And you said that Norway is a very secular country, and I think that's exactly why. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I love going out there so much because as an American, I mean, it's like religion is just it's historically been force fed down your throat, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's so important for parents to have their kids confirmed Catholic, if you were raised Catholic, or just going by, just there's no separation of church and state, even though that the Constitution says it so, but whatever. And I found it very interesting that you said that that Count Grishnak was very cringe in the sense that everything was, his uh, music is all like, surrounding a lot of about Lord of the Rings and D&D, and I've read that and I've heard different things that he actually spoke about on his social media and whatnot. So I just get the sense just talking to you and like Yannicke here and there, just like he's just sounded like he was a person that he is a person that just takes himself way too fucking serious in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend more time on this interview talking about him, but it's very, very important to know that this scene wasn't really about being the best or biggest or something at that time. You know, it was more about figuring out your own thing within the framework or everything I've talked about.
Mhm.
And whenever we listened to someone who made some music that was clearly directly inspired by or copied by somebody else, we would always be like, let's see, what is this? This sounds exactly like that or this. We were super nerdy about details in the music, which has no value anymore, really, because now there is so much music out there. It's so difficult to tell what's coming from what. And I think what we have experienced is the true timeline of the development. And I realized that the longer we are away from the original source, the less the original timeline means, especially to new people, because it's really hard to figure out what the original timeline for anything is right now, literally because everything's available online. And I mean, there is um releases with a specific year or something, but at the time, we remember if you think that we were having this conversation, let's say in 1992, I would be super aware of all the important releases in this kind of music for a decade behind me. But there was nothing a decade before that. It's like literally 10 years from when Venom released Welcome to Hell to 1991 or 92, or the black metal album from Venom came out in, I think, 82. So the further away you are from that original timeline, the less the clear you can understand why this sounds like this, why does this band go that direction or stuff like that.
Mhm.
When that's all blurred, the whole basic idea we always had about being original kind of also blurs out. And I think that's a very hard thing to come to realize. But I think right now it's more about I would say searching for some sort of imperfection and some sort of human connection to the music to even be valuable to me at least. And I think a lot of people are realizing now that, hey, wait a minute, why don't we figure out what we can actually do with our technical abilities as a band, let's say, and do something that sounds great as a group together and interesting and record that and make that the album, not try to overcompensate your lack of technical abilities with whatever resources you have. For me, especially since I've also actually in the 90s worked with electronic music, and I've gone back and forward between working with electronic music. Actually, I haven't been working directly with electronic music in that sense for over 15 years now, but now I feel that all the new stuff I hear, most of the new stuff I hear, I can clearly tell that they have either use the same kind of plugins for drum sounds and
Mm,
guitar sounds. They try to make it as perfect as possible in the meaning of the word, as sterile as possible. And right now, with this wave and the just initial start of all this AI music, I think everybody who's been going down that route has shot themselves in the foot, because the closer you get to perfect, the closer AI can imitate whatever you do. And if what you're doing sounds more like computers than a band, how interesting do you think that will be to anyone listening? Is it possibly more interesting if you sit down and listen to the Hellhammer stuff, for instance, stuff like that? So imperfect and so human, but at the same time, they pour their souls out into
right.
it. So it sounds like they really want you to listen to this. If you are interested in that direction, or early battery and all this stuff sounds imperfect and at the same time very emotionally capturing in a total different way than anything that is polished sounds like. And the main reason why all these Norwegian bands went necro, like we, that's the term we use here.
Hmm.
You really want a necro sound, and you took a stand against commercial sounding or slick sounding, or yeah, all that stuff that makes things sound super clear was against the law. And then people are listening to these early Norwegian black metal things and like, oh, it's poor production. I'm like, yeah, you totally don't get it, do you? Because they could at the time choose to go into the studio and play and record it super slick, but that was the aim to not be like that.
Right.
So if your aim is to to show the finger to a direction, I think it's even more important now actually to have like a would that be the third, or I mean fourth or fifth wave, or something? People who really just find some human element and go for that. I think those bands I really want to check out and listen to now. And everybody who's using superior drum machine, oh, I'm happy for you. Good luck, but it's not for me.
Yeah. You know what? See, I had a question loaded for you, and I think you pretty much covered it because, my question was, whenever you're there, writing, creating your own art and getting these, like riff ideas and whatnot, it, I could almost probably guarantee that, you're going with, with just instinctual gut feeling rather than thinking about precision all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of cursed because I know how to play super precise as well, so I need someone to bounce it back with, like I need a drummer really in the room to really get that thing going in the way I want. So whenever actually I'm I have this band with Mannheim, the first Mayhem drummer, called Order,
Right.
and we sit in this room and jam together and figure out what we like about the jam, and then just go like old school into what we want to do then, and just record without any click tracks or anything, just like try to capture whatever we want to do. And to me, that's more challenging and more fulfilling. It's the reason why I want to do this now, is to find that edginess. The edginess is always the most important. And whatever we do that sounds generic in some sort of way, we just throw out, like we used to do back in the day. Now you can literally record anything at any, it's so easy to just do something, but to do something that really captures you has always been difficult. That it should be kind of difficult to make something that people will remember when they hear it. It's funny how that goes. It's super difficult, and the only reason why I'm doing it is that because it's super difficult. It
Yeah.
should be difficult to do something that really means something to you know.
You you spoke of drummers, and one of the drummers that I really appreciate, in addition to Mannheim, is Dirk Van Buren.
Oh
And
yeah.
whenever you're working with Dirk, I mean, like, explain that dynamic and that relationship that you two have, uh, in regards to writing music together.
I mean, he is first of all an extremely accomplished drummer, but he's also a super musical drummer. You know, he plays guitar, he plays anything, but he really follow whatever you try to do and enhance what you do. And actually, he made me like Megadeth again. Actually, you know, because I used to like them in the 80s, but I fell off. I didn't even know that Rust in Peace was an album because that came out in 1990 when I was totally into anything but something from a big band like them. Uh, but he is now I mean accomplished so much with that too, which is a fantastic thing for him as an artist. I just saw him actually 1 week ago playing a show in London, and the way he's just playing now, he plays totally much more like himself than he used to do in the beginning of Megadeth. But whenever we've been in a room together and playing, it's for me super easy to create cool things because he's hyper aware of whatever is good about something you do. So he's just one of those literally one of the best drummers in the world, I guess, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm so fortunate to be able to do anything with a musician like that, and I've been very lucky in my life to work with several great musicians, but he's one of the very, very best and probably the best I've ever worked with drums and my riffs for sure.
Yeah. And as far as like the riff development with Dirk, I mean, do you ever find yourself like, completely puzzled whenever he lays down a drum track, or like if you are, or does the riffs come first and you're like, hey, what can we do with this?
Yeah, no, worked both remotely and together. So it's whenever I send him something, I send it totally without uh, any interpretation or any kind of drums. It's just the guitar riffs,
Mhm.
bare naked, you know. So he can do whatever he hears it. And whenever he's doing something, sometimes it locks into something I would have thought, but most of the time he just find the rhythms that I haven't understood that the riff has, and we take it from there, which is the most interesting thing for me is to make something. You know, a lot of people. I'm gonna talk a little bit. Do you play guitar?
I do.
Yeah, okay. So whenever I learned this a long time ago from another guitarist, actually, when he was writing riffs for his band, the most important thing if you want to play along with some sort of tempo in your computer or something, never ever program the drums. Just use like a hi-hat and maybe where you think the snare is, but it's you as little as possible if you want to do interesting things because as soon as you think where you want to have the downbeat or whatever drum fills or something as the guitarist you don't allow the drummer to listen to what you're doing the way anyone would listen to it. Sometimes you think that you have a certain pattern and it would fit with everything kind of fits with very generic beats. But if you want to do something interesting, take away all that and see what the drummer comes up with. But then the catch is that you need to have a musical, extremely good drummer, which is hard to find.
Yeah. They're not exactly a dime a dozen these days.
Oh, exactly. That's I've said for a long time. If you want to do this thing full on, you probably should you know go for drums because it's if you're a really skilled drummer, you'll have more gigs than anyone else in you know musician wise. But and it's funny how some people just hear things backwards, or yeah, just create something else. And whenever I've worked with Dirk, we always develop things on the fly, which seem to be the best way to capture something. That's why I'm, looking for something edgy, something interesting, and then just go for that, because most of the recordings that we hear from the way back in the day, those riffs are probably made just recently for the ones recording it. Like maybe they have had the songs for a month or two, and then they go for it and they just record it. Now the sickness in metal and many other genres has been to sit on material for a long time and drag it out, and there's no spontaneous feeling to it because it's already old when you record it or something.
Right.
But this all requires a mountain of experience and confidence more than anything. If you really believe that what you have done on the fly holds up, you have to have someone to work with that says, yeah, that's great. And that's all you need, really. If it's good, then it's gonna be good forever. Just go for it. Sometimes that's a good way to do it. If you want to do metal, at least, because metal has to have that excitement and paraphrasing and the guitar things that make you feel like, wow, that's really, really, really cool. Metal is one of the few genres where the guitar riffs are the main artist along with the drums, and then of course uh, you have to have the right vocals. If you have very bad vocals on it, people won't listen to it. So it's the combination, but it's not like songwriting in metal can be torn apart and played acoustically, and just gives a total different direction. I think that's the beauty of this genre. It's actually one of the few genres where the guitars are super important to be, the medium that you divorce this music from other kinds of music.
Yeah. And that being said, guitars being, uh, having such an importance, you have shown historically that just how important of a guitarist that you are on stage and in the studio. I'd be remiss not to ask you about how did your involvement with bands like Satyricon and Triptychon come about? Um,
Triptychon, I haven't really been involved with. You mean Celtic Frost, maybe?
I'm sorry, yeah, Celtic Frost, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's two different stories. But uh, to talk about Celtic Frost was by chance they were looking for a second guitarist for the comeback tour in 2006. And I happened to tell someone in Switzerland, in the music business in Switzerland, that I was really into Celtic Frost. I was in a band called Apoptygma Berserk at the time, and we played a show in Zurich where, without my knowledge, Tom was at the show looking at this show. He didn't know that I was into his band at all, but when they were talking to different people in the industry in Switzerland, this artist rep from Sony Music that I've been talking to mentioned to them that the guitarist from Apoptygma was really into Celtic Frost. So that was my initial way in there. They just called me up to see if I could do an audition. I was like, what the fuck? Celtic Frost is coming back. They want me to play guitar. That was like a total insane thing. It was I think I did 66 or 67 shows with them through that year and into 2007. And that really brought me back to the roots of my metal again, I would say, because up in that until that time, I've been doing different things with Cadaver and this electronic band called Apoptygma Berserk. So then I decided to go full metal again, and I haven't looked back since. But the Satyricon story is very different because Satyricon was at the time we started Cadaver and we did our first stuff. Satir himself was in his teens. He's born in 75, so he was like 15, 16, 17 when we were doing shows, and I remembered him from being like standing outside the backstage door at the show we did in Oslo. We opened for Death, and I think he was there with a singer from Ulver, and I think that's the first time I met him. Frost was another character who was a huge fan. At the time, he didn't even play drums, so he came to some things I've done with. I did this jam band thing with Abath and Euronymous and Demonas in like a Christmas metal Christmas party in 99 when 91 92, where Frost apparently was. He knows everything about this party, and I didn't know him at all at the time, didn't talk to him. So those guys knew who I was from, the scene. So they approached me several times through my career to do guitar stuff or bass stuff and stuff for them. So I've been in the studio recording with them on several projects. First one was in 96, I think.
Mhm.
And then in 98, 99 with the Rebel Extravaganza. At that time, took them more seriously because I really liked the Nemesis Divina album, and I thought they had a really interesting direction on the songs they were showing me. So I joined them for some sessions and recorded some guitars. And then we've been friends and, uh, doing stuff. I've been asked to do stuff with them several times through my life. So it's I've been doing things on and off with them for 25 years until, 2022-ish to 23 when I said because uh at that time, this is a long story, I feel, but
Go ahead.
yeah, the thing is that I had cancer and survived in 2020.
Mhm.
And after my cancer, I had to reprioritize my whole life, as well as projects I was involved with and stuff. So I just said like, I think you need to move on because I need first of all, after my cancer, most important thing for me was to be 100% in control of all my time.
Right.
I have some fatigue periods and stuff like this, so I basically let the whole project go without me, and we left on good terms and all that. So it's more like I've been in and out doing things for them for a long, long time, but now I really want to focus 100% on whatever I'm doing. Also, because as I said, I need to be 100% in charge of my time and to also be a creative part and passionate about my own thing is more important than ever. And then you can't it's impossible to have Silicon as a side project. It's whenever they're doing stuff, it's a lot of stuff. So they need someone who's dedicated. So I didn't have any more time left, basically.
Yep. And that was another thing I was going to touch on was your cancer diagnosis and overcoming that. And I I've been around cancer. I've had family members who have dealt with it, died from it. I had friends that overcame it, and I myself never had it. However, I do have an autoimmune disease that sidelines me here and there. So
Mhm.
I can only imagine just how how scary that could be as getting that diagnosis initially, and like all the what ifs and the fear of uncertainty that could go along with that diagnosis. And my question for you is that once you initially got diagnosed, just uh did did the doctors like give you like a plan of attack of how they were going to do it, and like just give you some a bit of optimism that everything was going to be okay?
Mm, no, I mean, Actually, when you're almost dying, the doctors are not telling you that. The way they approach it is that they just say that if we do this and this and this, you have a good chance. That means that you're almost dead,
Yeah.
basically. But I didn't really feel fear like that through it because I didn't have really the time because it just came as a initial shock, and then you just go straight into chemotherapy and that stuff. And I had surgery, actually, big surgery. So
Mhm.
I didn't really have time to reflect on it until I was through it, really.
Right.
But when you're in the middle of it, you all you do is that you hope for the best, but you come to terms with dying in a different way, you know. Um, it's of course very different from person to person, but I really didn't have that big oh no, I'm gonna die feeling. It feels stupid to say that, but that's really didn't really happen for me. I think it happened for everybody around me,
Mhm.
you know, which is more natural. So it's for the patient, you just go through all the treatments and you hope that they know what they're doing. And if not, you'll you're gonna be gone. But it's I think the worst part of having cancer is for anyone around you more because they have all that thought all the time, but you don't really have the chance to reflect that much. Uh, a little bit maybe, but not in the way that I've heard people say. It's more like if this is it, and as long, I think that's important actually, as long as you come to terms with that, all you need to do now is live day by day, and as long as you wake up the next day, you have another day.
Right.
That's probably how you cope. And I did a lot of thinking about what I would do next down the road, through it. I had to sit down with myself and think, how is this going to affect my life? Possibly in a huge way. I don't really know right now what it's going to do, but it's going to change a lot of things. And because I was in that age, and actually the pandemic was at the same time, which is important perhaps for my coping with it, because everybody else also stopped doing everything. So it didn't feel like I was missing out on anything that was happening. It seemed like my cancer went into a nosedive with the whole world going into a nosedive, you know.
You're right.
I think that for all of us who had cancer during the pandemic, it's probably been a little different than before and after when it comes to the feeling of it, because it felt like the whole world had just stopped for us somehow, if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense totally because I was going during the pandemic, I was going through a vasculitis relapse myself.
Hmm.
And it just like you said, it felt like I don't know how to explain it properly. It just felt like, the world stopped and I was just, just doing my thing, just trying to recover, just trying to muster what little bit of strength and health I can. And
Hmm.
and just fully dependent on making my appointments and like, getting the medication I needed and building strength day by day.
Yeah, that's I think that there should probably be like a survey about having cancer or something very serious happening to people during the pandemic that made it kind of more easy to deal with it. I don't know. It's I think many others have the kind of the same experience from that actually. It's funny also how the world kind of changed after, in according to, having the condition I have now. Most of the time I'm feeling great and I can do what I want, but suddenly I need to sleep for 13 hours and don't want to do anything during the day. So I'm very lucky to live in the society I'm living in, that's for sure, you know. When I did the chemotherapy, actually, I was, you know, you have time, you have like 4 hours of chemo
Mhm.
one day and 2 hours the next, and then it's like 2 weeks until the next round. Then I was one of my pastimes then was to at some point to figure out what would this have costed me if I was an American. And at the time, this is 2020. The kind of chemo I was doing, according to this was even before ChatGPT, so I had to Google it. I figured out that my whole cancer treatment kind of thing was between $10,000 and $15,000 a month.
Yeah. I know personally, whenever I didn't have chemotherapy, but I had an injection therapy where I'll just, I would receive medication through an IV,
Yeah,
and I would just sit down, for 4 to 8 hours for every treatment. I could tell you that one of those treatments back in 2015, prior to the pandemic, that was $17,000 out of pocket.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's things like that, and you know, another thing was that whenever you're sitting in a room like that, there's other patients, and you just talk to them because that's the people in the room. And the more terminal people were, the more black humor they had. So I realized that this is the worst place to become friends with new people. At the same time, it's probably the best because you go straight to the business, and if you get along with someone through that, you just know that some of these people will probably be gone within a year or two. So that was a strange feeling too. I got to know some people really close through it that I just knew would die within the next year or two, and they did, you know, which is also a strange experience because one of those guys was 5 years older than me, maybe less, like almost my age, and he was film director and director of TV series for the biggest Norwegian company, very and an actor. And I kind of knew who he was from his work, and we had some common friends, and he had the best kind of black humor on all this stuff, and we kind of felt. I wouldn't say feel bad about having a good time taking chemo, you know, because you get to know these people, and the black humor thing again is very important to survive it. And one of the things he said to me is like, "Too bad you didn't get your disease like 3 months ago." And I was like, "Why is that?" Yeah, well, back then, one of the guys in one of the most famous Norwegian murder cases in '99, which is like an infamous Norwegian murder case. The whole family was shot and killed, and there was like a mother and a father and a daughter. I mean, the mother and father was in their 80s, and the daughter was 50, and the younger son was and his wife and the wife's sister, and this guy was the sister's fiance or something. They were all convicted for this mass murder, and but nobody figured out who shot them or something. It
Yeah.
was like he was sitting here. I was like, wow, did he sit here? I was like, yeah, it was out of jail doing this chemo thing. Then he died.
You know,
Didn't reveal the true story, you know. It's like, fuck. Even then, you know, he could have said that who the fuck did it?
yeah. Yeah.
Like that, you know, that kind of black humor is it's like this case is super famous. It's almost like I can compare it to the US, but maybe like one of the Menendez brothers
Right.
was, yeah, stuff,
A
you know,
very high profile murder out
very
there.
high profile murder case. Anyway, you know, having that kind of conversations with people would never occur if you didn't have this kind of, you know, disease. And there's something beautiful about also seeing that your life will end too soon because I wish not for anything that people go through it, but there's a certain beauty of coming out on the other side, knowing that every day can be your last in a much more concrete way because we all live our lives like there's there's no gray waiting, but there is a gray waiting for us all. But as soon as you focus your life into the day by day thing much more,
Right.
it's a much better life. It kind of brings you a little bit back to what you remembered from your childhood, when every day was like a long time to spend to do stuff. And I've decided to. I don't have a TV, in my house or anywhere. All I have is, this obviously the screen I'm looking into now. I try to avoid paying attention to whatever happens this day and tomorrow in news, unless there's something concretely dealing with what I need to, if there's a traffic jam when I'm driving to Oslo, I need to know about that. But I try to avoid all the petty things that dilutes us, and all the trivia that is not necessarily for us to care about or know about if you want to focus on your own life. And I must say, not having a TV, not putting on the TV when you get home, but sit down instead with a guitar or something creative, or just do something every day that feels a little bit worth it in your life, than to be entertained or told by other people what to care about. Every day I can do that feels much better than anything else.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. I play guitar as well. I made a point to read more books
Yeah,
than
that's a good
than
one.
than paying attention to, what's on the phone all the time. Um, you know, it's my goal to be pretty much social media free next year,
That
and maybe
one.
just when it comes to the podcasting, just upload, and if whoever wants to watch it, listen to it, it's there
Yeah.
without any promotion, you know. Uh,
Yeah, the as long as I keep releasing new music, I need to deal with the fact that we have to do some sort of presence in the social media thing. I'm doing that, but not for personal things.
right.
That's my line. I can do it for the artistic side, just to, fulfill that part, which also is rewarding somehow, because it's the only place people actually are now. So you need to do something, but I'm not using anything for personal reasons. And the worst thing I know that people are stuck in is to always pay attention to somebody they hardly know, and what they talk about something you kind of care about, but not really, and engaged in conversations that you have no interest in, or even if you're interested, you just realize, if I say what I really think about this, do I need to spend like the next 10 hours defending my side, or all that stuff? Just get rid of all that stuff. That's freedom for me.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm not opinionated. Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Opinionated.
Yeah. But I choose my opinion making in interviews like this or stuff like that instead, and then people have to deal with it. I don't read the comments most of the time, and sometimes I miss out on people who actually try to reach out. But it's I thought that if you really want to reach me, you are able to somehow. It's not like I'm a ghost in the machine here, but it's like I don't need to constantly figure out who I am. That's probably why.
Yeah, yeah. I remember when I first started the podcast, I did try and reach out to you, and maybe for whatever reason, you were busy recording, the stuff with Order or Cadaver, or whatever you're focusing your energy on, and that's totally fine. And I was really excited whenever our mutual friend Henning of Befouled and his own podcast had reached out to me, and he shared the video of basically the documentary of his uh your interview, the live performance.
Oh yeah, that just recently, right?
Right, right.
Yeah,
And
cool.
I've spent time with Henning in Frederickstad, and I know when looking you up, is that a place where your farm's located, or that's a place you grew up?
It's not too far away from there. It's like 20 minutes away ish. So yeah, but I never go there unless I'm doing something like a gig. Actually, I'm going tonight to see a show with Norway's original stand-up guy. He wasn't even doing stand-up. He was more like in a Norwegian version of Monty Python in the 70s. But he's the protos, but he's like the mayhem of stand-up in Norway. It's like he
Awesome.
was doing that long before it was called stand-up. It was just called shows, you know.
Yeah.
So, he's a good friend of mine and a really famous guy in Norway. But he's always also done his own thing, his own path, his own way, and never been a part of anybody else's entertainment industry, which I find very fascinating because he's kind of a I would can't call him a black metal stand-up guy because that's not what I mean, but he more like do it yourself. He always owned all his master tapes. He never really sold out, but he was doing all this corny stuff. He was in a group called Primavera. It's in Norwegian, so it's not translatable, but it's fair to say it's kind of like Norway's Monty Python type humor with more like the Benny Hill, yeah, the
Yeah.
British humor kind of stuff. Also releasing a lot of music with funny lyrics and yeah. So I'm going to the to that show in not so long from now. So maybe should try to wrap this up.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah, yeah. I was about to say,
I'd love to talk more, but I think I also have another interview at 4 my time. So I'm doing that before I go to this show. So yeah.
all right. Well, look, that's a great time to wrap up, and I really appreciate your time, Anders. Hope to see you in April when I head back out there for Inferno. Hope you're around, and maybe we
Yeah.
can catch up then. But
I
uh,
will for sure catch up then, and I will hopefully do some more diverse stuff at the IMC next year for the conference. I'm gonna do a bus or two, maybe two buses, but not more this time because I need to. I want it to be more exclusive, and I kind of overdid it. I felt myself. I don't want to do that all the time as a it's more important to do it enough, so I'm also interested enough to do it, so it's always good. But I'll definitely come to hang around the whole festival as well. So hopefully see you then.
definitely see you then. Thanks again for your time, Anders Odden of Cadaver, Order, and Celtic Frost, Tyricon. Thanks again, my friend. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.